The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Well, I was going to say I'm fortunate enough to talk to Sarah Campbell today, the executive director of Ark Aid Street Mission, but I'm not sure how fortunate it is, Sarah. Your family is under quarantine because of COVID. My family is under quarantine because of COVID. It's January 7th when we're taping this, but it's hard, eh? And so I wish I was speaking to you under better circumstances. You know, I know both of our families are struggling away here, but it's important, though, I think, not so much that we talk about COVID per se. I'm interested to a certain degree in how you feel it's affected you. I think I put out a thing yesterday on Facebook about how I couldn't sleep the entire night before because after speaking with volunteers and staff, I was trying to talk about, or trying to think about how can I best protect them, because Omicron is so contagious, right? What can I do? And here I am, it's in my own home, right? But has that worn on you more than the previous, dispensations of COVID? Have you found that more? And what about your sense of, do you feel the responsibility of that more than you did, say, a year ago?
Well, certainly, I think probably everyone in our community is feeling just exhausted from the number of times we've had to change direction, try to accommodate, continue to serve through the various waves of it. We become concerned about everyone around us, right? So like you said, my small circle, my kids and my family, that's my first, what's going on right here in my house. Yeah. But then the staff and their families, and then, the volunteers and their families, and the people who come for service and really require those services. To shut down doesn't seem like a good option at all. And at the same time, that would be the safest option. Yeah. And you're kind of balancing the whole time. But here in this fourth wave, I think the sheer size of the wave, right? Like just the number of individuals impacted is so high. And I just, I reported publicly that we're 25% down on our staffing. Wow. So when you lose a quarter of your staff on a 24/7, staffing model, it's just, those who are able to work are working extra. Those who are off are frustrated, not able to help out. And you just feel the tightness of the whole system. And I think given that it's the fourth time this is happening and people are dealing with it in their personal lives, their professional lives, their public lives, I think the exhaustion and how it's impacting people mentally. I think if I were to say what's really the cost of this, I think we're so fortunate that we've had the vaccine and that the public health measures have been so good to protect us from the worst of it or what it could have been. But it's the exhaustion of we're doing this again. So even the kids who are back online learning, and I've got some children doing that, it's like, oh no, this is how it started last time. A couple weeks online. Is this going to be my whole grade 8 year? Is this going to be the end of school for this? And their fears are just triggered. And I think, it's been a really tough and this has been a long time of managing this. So yeah, I feel exactly what you're saying, and that responsibility and the need to be both comforting and clear and supportive, all at the same time while managing my own, very personal journey through it.
I understand. I think I want to talk about the operation of the Ark in a bit, but how about your clients? I mean, your clients are the most vulnerable folks out there at the moment, and it is the winter. How's that affected it about Omicron with the clients for you?
Well, I think we serve sort of two distinct populations. We have our homeless, truly homeless, unsheltered folks that access our services. And then we have people who are deeply impoverished and often marginalized. And so they may be housed, but they don't have community in the same way you or I do. And I think it's interesting because when when lockdown happens or various things happen in our lives that are just uncomfortable, we have our families and our communities to reach out to, whether it's by these kind of video calls or showing support to one another. Well, at the Ark is family to most of our community members, the people who come. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of set up the same sorts of things. We try to deliver meals or food to people who are housed. We try to divert some of our services in those ways for our housed folks. And then for the truly, like you're saying, those who are unhoused, unsheltered, the Ark over this last year and a half has done anything and everything we can envision and enact to try to provide a place of welcome, because there is such a shortage of locations. And we know, even right now, we're turning people away because we don't have enough space, particularly at night. And it's getting cold, really cold. This week, actually, we'll have our first cold weather alert at night of this winter. Yeah. And it'll be difficult when we don't have the capacity, the ability to bring people inside. But particularly how it relates to Omicron is that there's nowhere to, we have an isolation space. That's kind of what our system has set up, but it's full all the time because of the volume. Again, this is our biggest volume. So people may not be as sick, but the volume is much larger. Yeah. And so sometimes we're sending people nowhere. We're saying, I'm sorry, you can't come in here. Please go isolate, knowing that there's nowhere for them to go and isolate. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty empty in those moments.
I understand. You and I have known one another for a few years, but I remember 2 years ago, we met at a Starbucks and we talked about the winter shelter program that was coming up as COVID was getting in there and winter was coming. And it became that. I know that you and others helped to pull together a coalition of groups that really helped in that first winter. Would have been impossible without you folks. I think it was awesome. The city partnered with it as well. So all that was great. But I did feel back then that there was a sense, and I talked with Randy Richmond at the Free Press about this in the last one of these. And there was a sense back then, we're really up against it, but we can do this. We can find solutions. This is maybe forcing us to do some things we should have been doing before. And doing it. And I think there was I remember all the people involved with all of that, the homeless lunch program, the winter shelter program, other things. There was that sense of hope that was coming from it, the Building Back Better idea. This year, I don't sense that nearly as much. And I wondered, is that true for you as well? I feel that. I just wondered if you did.
I guess I feel throughout this entire COVID process that, we've done some amazing things as a country, really, in response to this. We've had examples of like the CERB, for example, which was basically a pilot project for basic income. We've had various responses, including what we did last year with homelessness, where it was like, let's come together and see if we can't together do something that we couldn't have imagined doing individually. And I would say that we did do that. Yeah. But we still have the default settings of competition, of, good enough, like Band-Aid solutions rather than those systemic solutions. And I think if I were to say like, what's kind of the disappointment of it is that, this has changed the landscape of how we in Canada are having to function. In fact, just the economic impacts and so on, we're going to feel this for quite some time. Yeah. We could have, and we should, those of us who are exhausted right now and feeling like just at the end of our tether, we need to take this little reprieve. If you get your 10-day quarantine and think again, how can we refocus on those larger systemic issues? Because I think what happened was we took good energy at the beginning of this thing and said, okay, let's make the best of it. And then we did some good things and then we got tired. At least I'll speak for myself. I got tired because it was so much like pull it together and make it happen. And then just, I think, the stress and strain of doing those things pulls you away from that big picture thinking of what is the systemic change that needs to happen underneath it.
Yeah.
And so I'm eager to refocus in 2022 on speaking very clearly to our levels of government and to our community to say, hey, we can only do better together. And we can only do better if we insist on those structural changes so that we don't have to weather these storms individually, we weather them as community. And we've seen so many beautiful examples of it during COVID that you're absolutely right. We need to refocus on those and go, okay, let's do that again.
Yeah.
And not let the default siloing that we all point to and say, that's not working for our community, but we don't actively push against sometimes. So yeah, I agree with your view.
Yeah. So can we just talk about the winter shelter program? I mean, we know what it was last year and we know what it did. I mean, it was a phenomenal amount of work, especially for you folks. And, you know, I think it was all very appreciated. But now we're into the 2.0, the next year of it, right? What is the difference this year as opposed to what happened last year?
Well, I think with what we fondly call WISH, Winter Interim Solution to Homelessness last year, is that it was truly a group of organizations that individually would never have considered doing this work because of the size of our organizations or our capacities and so on. But when we came together, we were able to bring the best to the table and come up with something. And everyone contributed. You know, the food bank contributed. Everyone who was touched by it contributed what they could at that time. And I think that it did, it was strong because of that. I also think that the principles that were selected by those group of organizations, things like low barrier and
explain low barrier for us, just for somebody who doesn't know.
Yeah, that's good. There's always that language that we use that, you know, it's the inside language. Thank you for pointing it out. Yeah. Low barrier just simply means, you know, it's easy for people to access those services. And where we see challenges to that, we remove them as best as we can. So some examples of that would be, you know, we basically accept people where they're at. So if they come to the door and they have addiction and mental health, we start with them with addiction and mental health. If they come to the door and they are physically ill or have other, physical barriers to accessing the space, we work to reduce those. If they come and they're actually just jaded by the system because they've been jilted and moved from place to place, we give them time to build that trust and accept them the way they are. So that's what low barrier means. That was an important value. Also harm reduction, which is where we say, whatever is going on in your life that is harming you, our goal isn't for you to end those things like addiction, like abusive relationships, but it's rather to reduce the harms of those things.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of values and having the experts around the table actually who knew how to implement those types of values, I think that was a real strength of last year's effort. And then I also think our London community, the citizens in this city got behind us. And so between those two things, I really think miraculous things happened. The construction community helped us make those trailers happen. The food bank helped us ensure that we had nutritious meals for people right from the get-go. And in fact, we opened the doors to those sites really quickly and filled them within days each time. And I think that it just was a testament to how much need there was and how much collectively we could do. This year, I think they wanted to employ different approaches and see if like a different type of focus could yield different kinds of outcomes. It happened from the top down. The city kind of, I think, had those conversations with various organizations, and that's how it was employed. And so the locations that were selected and just the process was completely different. Last year it was a bottom up sort of groundswell, like the community brought the suggestion and then the city got right behind it and made it happen. This year, I think the city was like, okay, we know this is coming again. Let's try to do it this way.
Yeah.
And again, I'm super proud to be in a city where they're trying to do anything. And if we can solve the problem better for people, that's great. But I do think always, like, the more you can consult the end user, for example, like last year, we asked people on the street, what would you actually engage with? What do you need to come inside and be safe?
Yeah.
You know, the more you can engage the grassroots, the more you're going to get the response, I think, where people, that people want.
Yeah. It's a bit different this year though, right? Like, so the locations are different, but also you're helping out, like you're partnering with the YMCA and on those things. And now also for St. Andrew's Church, which is really helping with a lot of what you're doing. I just wonder if you could explain that a bit, because that's a bit from last year too.
Well, for Ark Aid, so we aren't doing any of the trailer implementation, but we're very supportive of the two organizations that are doing that. Yeah. But our response when we were asked what could we do this year, we maintained those same values of low barrier and harm reduction and wanting to meet people where they were at. And we know that people are in the core of our city. And so those two partners, the Y and First St. Andrews, are in the perfect location to help us achieve that objective. And so what we have this year is a 12-hour day space at the YMCA where people can come in and get meals and warmth and basic need items throughout the daytime. And then at night, people can come inside and we have, beds set up and warm cup of soup and a bun and some baked goods that the church ladies have been bringing in, and just a really warm, welcoming place for people to rest and be warm throughout the nighttime. And that's what we've been doing as an organization this year. Quite different than last year. It's been run by Ark Aid this year. Partners have helped us, like the health bus from Intercommunity Health is still coming for ID clinics and for health needs. We have some great partners at RHAC who are helping us with various aspects of the program. So there is partnership in it, but it's different in that the operation really is an ARC operation compared to last year where it was a collaborative operation.
Yeah. And is that the distinction between Wish and Wish to Be Home?
Right. So Wish to Be Home is sort of the continuation of Wish. So Wish started as a collective. Yeah. But once the project in winter was done, we continued to serve those people. And we actually visioned what we hope to be the future of sheltering and housing from an Ark Aid perspective, built on the Wish experience and on our community experience. And so that involves what we call stabilization through permanent home housing. And so we're looking at a future where we would have different forms of housing, including sort of small or trailer type homes, tiny homes or trailer type homes on the same property as, say, a high rise or a low rise apartment building where people could transition from the responsibilities and the care of a small space where they can stabilize. And as they are ready, at their timeline, move towards what their vision of housing would be. It's a supports first model where the objective is actually to just support people wherever they're at, even if that's in a tent. Start there and keep the same support as people move through that housing process, because it's kind of like, winter's a good example. It's a de-thawing process. People have to, almost de-armor and allow themselves to become open to being home. And they have to relearn what being home looks like and what it's like to take off your coat and get warm and be okay with being in community with others. People don't find themselves just immediately into homelessness. People go through a process of pain often that leads to that place. Yeah. And so then there's a process that needs to happen to come away from that place.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think that's part of the problem, right? Even when I was talking to Randy, when you're talking about homelessness, there's so many different levels and cohorts, if I can use that word, that it's sometimes when you're talking about it and you're talking about solutions, it's really dealing with this particular one as opposed to this particular one. But I think everybody understands that you're basically at the very foundational level of where this is coming from. I mean, these are people that are the most at risk, the people that most feel isolated. I understand that. So I think we all really appreciate that, you're thinking this through, Sarah, and that the Ark is willing to make these kind of visionary statements, and I know that you're working towards getting there. If you had the ability to put it all together and create a solution for London, what would that solution be? And where do you think that solution must start?
Wow, I love these dreaming questions. As a visionary, I live part of my life in that headspace. I think the solutions are is that they're very, just like you said, there's a multiplicity of things that need to happen. And there's so many approaches. And the great thing about having different approaches to the solutions is that we can meet all the various types of people where they're at, and there's an access point for people. And I think like that first thing at the Ark, we've kind of come up with a vision statement over this year that again grew out of the Wish experience, that we envision a community where all people in God's love are beheld, beloved, and belong. And so I guess if you were to say, what's the vision? I think that is what it is. We need to see people for who they are and where they are. We need to love them as a community. And then we need to create spaces where they can belong. And the practical implication of that, because that's nice. Those are nice words, but the practical implication of that is that we actually do need to, value human beings. We need to make sure that the healthcare services and the mental health services are not siloed, that any door, any access point that a person might find will get them to the services that they need. Right now, what happens is if you get into a service area, it feels a lot like a maze where there's sort of dead ends and like there is a way through, but you've got to be kind of special and very tenacious to get through all of those pathways. I envision a place, a way of working as a community where every door is the right door, and that we would remove those walls, those barriers in between, so that people can get to the services that they need and the care that they need. And one of the things that I think, where does it begin, is it begins with each of us by realizing, and I think this time of COVID actually is a great starting point for this, where we actually all realize that each of us has basic needs related to being a part of community, being in relationship with one another, being connected. Meals on Wheels was the first organization I ran. And I remember thinking that the public health crisis of today is that of loneliness, actually. It's not anything else. It's that sense of isolation. And then for these last 2 years, we've been telling people, isolate. And I think where the solutions to homelessness and to community building come from, let's not isolate. Let's be connected to one another. Let's be empathetic and see the issues that are going on. But let's, on a personal level, open our hearts and our spaces. Like, we have many underutilized homes and houses in our city. We have many buildings sitting vacant or derelict. We have many spaces that could be turned into places of vibrancy and life. It's a matter of will. So we need to see those things, and then we need to collectively see the vision. Yeah. And we need to welcome the various approaches to turning spaces of vacancy into spaces of life. So that's kind of, I know that's still not super specific, because I don't think it's a one size fits all solution, but I think it begins in each of our own hearts when it comes to how we view others and our willingness to give up something of ourselves for the betterment of those around us. But it ends with a belief that, different approaches create more opportunities for more people.
Yeah. Sarah, I mean, you're on the front lines of everything, it seems, at the Ark. What is it that people can do or organizations can do to help? Because I don't think this is about you're helping in this temporary situation. I think you are trying to build a more secure future in London for these folks. How can people help? Organizations, businesses, whatever. What can be done? How can we help you?
Well, I think help me by helping your neighbor. Love the person closest to you. Really start there. And cheer on all the good things. And Glenn, I want to take a minute to just appreciate the work you're doing right now, just, highlighting different organizations and the amazing things that happen. I'd like to do the same. I think we all can help by actually recognizing the strength that exists in our community. It feels great to hear you say those words because, the day in, day out work, you can sometimes forget that is building something bigger and more collective. I think citizens can join in through volunteerism, through donation, through serving on a board, getting involved. I think that is one way of engaging that gives back to you as well as an individual. But I think, what you've been sort of pointing to for some time is that if we want social change, we can't do it individually. So it's not about helping Ark Aid Street Mission or the food bank or all of us good organizations. It's about, can we pull the political will together to say we as a society can do better for our most vulnerable, and we need to gather together and come up with those solutions collectively. And I'm a supporter of that. I know you have big dreams around that still, which is something I admire in you. And I hope our community can come together around ideas of, more permanent social direction as a collective. Yeah. The individual organizations can implement it and unite in unique ways so that there's different access points, but we need to do that systemic adjustment together.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, I think that I have learned through COVID that the public is much more interested in helping in these areas than perhaps people realize. I think COVID with business support as well. I think people really saw a different side of London that showed up big time in helping. And I think that's really important. And I understand that it needs to move now into more systemic levels. We need to find ways of bringing all these different people and to make these kind of changes that we aspire to and dream of as a community. On the other hand, people have to have an entry point. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that what you're doing at the Ark is one of those entry points, and a key one, because when people think about homelessness or whatever it is, they're really thinking right down at the front lines where you're working now and what you're doing. And I just wanted to thank you for that, because I think we as a community, much as we care and we really want to do things, I think that's really true. But we have to be able to focus and to make a start and then become more sophisticated in how we look at that and bring in more resources and other things as a community. But you guys are right at the front. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think what you're doing, it helps us to focus as a community, but it also means, and I think you understand this, that it means we need help now as we move from this. Whenever COVID ends, and let's hope it's soon, we could go back to the same way as it was before it started. And none of us wish that. I definitely don't think the populace wishes that. But we're going to need people who can tell stories, people who know what it's like to work with folks like that, to help us to understand a little barrier, just as you said. I think the Ark is really doing that. And I think all of us would just want to thank you outright for making that kind of move in that direction, the way that the Ark has. And also for you personally, I don't know how you do it, Sarah. I mean, it's such a load to carry, and you got kids, right? And now you've got COVID, in the family. I understand. It must be such a drain on you, and not all of us have those kind of capacities, but you do here. And I thank you for keeping at it. And it's important that you do, because I'm not sure the rest of us will get there. People like you just don't keep at it. Do you have thoughts on that? Do you agree with that? I presume you do.
I do. And I'm eternally grateful to be at the Ark. It's been for me, I've been there not quite 2 years, but the integration of the life I find in spirit and the life I find in community come full circle at Ark Aid Street Mission, because we are obviously very interested in making sure people have their basic needs and everything else, but we recognize the whole humanity of the person, and that there's life and there's joy and there's strength and there's beauty in each individual who walks through the doors. And that includes our volunteers and our staff and myself. So I've grown my own self-compassion for my hardest days by being at the Ark, because we're equally valued and we have different capacities to give. And so, you're saying exactly what I see around me. And you kind of made me want to tell a story. I had a beautiful moment over Christmas this year where I picked up from the Ark a gentleman who actually was in the trailers at Elizabeth Street last year. His name's Dan. People have seen him in the paper, so I know he won't mind if I use his name. And I picked Dan up from the Ark to come over and spend some time with my family and watch The Matrix, because we're going to go see the movie at the movie theater, which we haven't done, and now we've got COVID going again. But anyway, the Ark was all locked up, but there was someone outside who was cold. And before we left the Ark, we gave him a blanket and said, you need to start walking towards First St. Andrews. We're given direction, whatever. We came back several hours later after watching our movie. And the person who had been outside of the Ark was another person who had been in the trailers last year. And so it was this stark contrast between Dan, who had been in those trailers, but had somehow navigated through the steps to, he's working at the Ark now. He's living in our sanctuary apartment. He's stabilized. He's thriving, really.
That's great.
And this person who, just was unable to stay with us through the steps, and in his journey right now, just, was outside cold and wet. That's where his journey had brought him. And I watched Dan get out of my vehicle and go to this guy, and, came running back and said, "Hey, I need you to get me all kinds of warm stuff inside. He's really cold. He's not going to go, but I'm going to invite him into my place and he's going to have a shower." And he was the hands and feet of our community, saying, "You matter, you're included," and in ways that not all of us are equipped to do. And that's what I mean. We each have our own comfort and our ability to do something. But Dan, who has very little, even still, was able to do something so beautiful for another citizen in our city. And it reminds me that, we can talk big systemic solutions, but then there's just like that human connection solution. And those are some of the stories that we see at the Ark. We see people developing themselves, growing themselves to a place of health and capacity to give and share. And I love that the Ark gives all of us that opportunity. And so does the food bank. And so did many other organizations in our city. And to your point about, we each need to bring our best gifts to the table. I'm not very good at lots of things. I can't build a house, but I can dream, and I can encourage our community to fund and create homes for different kinds of people. I can talk about those social needs, and I'm going to use the gifts I have, as long as I have them, to build up our community and make sure that all of us get to live the most thriving lives possible. And I think that's what each of us need to bring to the table, even when we get tired. And so and we have to encourage each other. So I thank you for the encouragement and the stories that motivate me to keep going.
Sarah, can you thank the board and your staff and volunteers? We know that it's not just, we know all of that. We get that. On the other hand, we need a face, and you are one of those faces on this file, and these are our own citizens at most at risk. And the fact that you're there, we just need to, as a community, thank all of you at the Ark, and for you and staff and volunteers. It's an awesome thing that you're doing, and we'll be there to support you. Thanks for doing this today and taking the time to explain to us.
Thank you.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media. You're watching Rogers TV.
1924 at a restaurant in what country? What? Caesar salad is not Italian? What? Question number 9. What fruit plant known as Solanum lycopersicum originated in South America? It was not introduced to Europe until the 16th century, where it was sometimes called love apples or golden apples. Hello? Huh? Don't go there. All right, yeah. But it says love apples. Don't do it. Question number 10. What European brand of soda was created as a Coca-Cola substitute in 1940 due to the American trade embargo of Nazi Germany? You know what I think is really unfair, folks, is no one ever asks about the mental health of Coca-Cola. Whereas every restaurant I go into, somebody always asks, hey, is Pepsi okay? Is Pepsi okay? All right, it's time for round one. Round one answer. The category was missing from the quartet. Here we go. Question number 1. Marvel Comics, the Fantastic Four, consisted of Invisible Woman, Human Torch, and The Thing. Who is missing? Mr. Fantastic was missing. Oh, that means time for another fun fact. According to the Center for Disease Control, the first superhero to contract the coronavirus was Batman. Question number 2, the 4 friends on Sex and the City include Carrie, Samantha, and Charlotte. Who is missing? Miranda. Question number 3, the band Led Zeppelin features Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham. Who is the missing 4th member? The answer is Robert Plant. Robert Plant. Question 4. Which of the following was not one of the 4 hobbits in Lord of the Rings? And which one was left out of the list? The answer is Gimli, and the missing hobbit was Pippin. Question number 5. Mount Rushmore features 4 U.S. presidents, including Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln. Who was the 4th? Theodore Roosevelt. A bonus fun fact, of course, is before their images were carved into the mountains, the natural beauty of Mount Rushmore was unprecedented. Question 6 was, in what U.S. state did Hershey chocolates originate in? I was Pennsylvania. I love chocolate. When I was a kid, my parents had a strict rule. I was only able to eat 10 small pieces of chocolate when I got back from Halloween trick-or-treating. But they don't know this, but I always managed to eat 12 pieces of chocolate because I always had a couple of Twix up my sleeve. Question number 7. Which of the following is not native to North America? It's watermelon. Question number 8. Rather than ancient Rome, the Caesar salad was created in 1924 at a restaurant in what country? It was Mexico. Mexico is the answer. I still can't believe that. I think there's a technicality. I think any salad can become a Caesar salad if you stab it enough times. You know what I mean? Like 20, 23 times, I think, if my Shakespeare's. Et tu, crouton. Question number 9. What fruit plant known as Solanum lycopersicum originated in South America and is sometimes called love apples or golden apples? That's a tomato. Question number 10. What European brand of soda was created as a Coca-Cola substitute in 1940 due to the American trade embargo of Nazi Germany? That was Fanta. Fanta. I don't know, I'm more of a Pepsi guy, so to speak. And we'll sort of be right back right after this. Don't you go away.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Jeff from Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff. We're back for season 3. We've had the opportunity to see some great backyards and have some great barbecue. Join us, Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff.
Leonard Thompson, 13 years old, diabetes mellitus, 65 pounds.
Starve the child to let them live. The treatment's as cruel as the disease. It's a death sentence.
Dr. Banting.
This could be it.
He's the first to receive this trial.
But will it save him?
It's not pure enough.
So we try again. And again. And again.
Before the discovery of insulin, diabetes was a death sentence. Banting, Best, Collop, and McLeod's breakthrough has saved millions of lives. Leonard Thompson's was the first.
Was that 4 or 5? He's lost count and still thinks he can drive. Do you think he knows that when he is caught and charged with impaired driving, he'll lose his license and a lot more? If he gets in his car, he'll face costs exceeding $20,000. Does he realize he could have a criminal record for his choice to drive? And it could be much worse if he crashes. I wonder what he'll be thinking tomorrow.
I'm for have a Holden one at 15.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive so.
Back with more TV quiz show. Love the enthusiasm, guys. Love the enthusiasm. All right, we're back with round 3. Round 3, the category is historical songs. Historical songs. All right, so these are all songs about historical events. Question 11. What maritime disaster was the subject of a famous Gordon Lightfoot song? He did not just say Titanic. Chuck the intern did not say Titanic. Tell me he didn't say Titanic. Question 12. What song featured the lyrics Birth Control, Ho Chi Minh, Richard Nixon, Back Again, Moonshot, Woodstock, Watergate, Punk Rock? Oh, fun fact, folks. Speaking of birth control, scientists at the University of Moose Jaw have determined absolutely the best method of birth control. Apparently, it's Crocs. Question 13. What Russian mystic was immortalized in a song by the disco group Boney M? Russian disco song. It's just like a regular disco song, but in Russia, the beat finds you. Question 14. What was the name of Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young's song about the Kent State shootings? Was it A, Blowing in the Wind, B, Ohio, C, 110 Soldier, or D, Student Demonstration Time? That sounds familiar. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Who was in that group? Oh. Then maybe you can explain to me the word hot dog. Then. Question 15. Don McLean refers to what musician's death when he sings about the day the music died in his song American Pie? You remember this song, folks, right? Bye, bye, Miss American Pie, la, 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 la. Here's a really helpful tip for you. If you ever want to make a romantic Spotify playlist, put this American Pie song first, okay? Because this song is so long that by the time you get to the end of it, you'll have 2 kids, and the youngest one will be in college. It's a long song. All right, time for round 4. All right, the category is fighters. Fighters, famous fighters and fights and folks, I don't like the fight. In our entire marriage, okay, we've been married 25 years. In our entire marriage, we've only had 1 fight. It just happened to last for 25 years. That's I'm winning, I think. Question number 6. Which Irish MMA fighter was ranked the world's highest paid athlete by Forbes in 2021? Which Irish M&M fighter? The guy with the green one. The green one? That's the green M&M. Question 17. What former Toronto Maple Leaf player holds the record for most fights in NHL history? I don't know who he is. I don't know what he was fighting for. But if he played on the Leafs, it wasn't for the puck. That's for sure. Question 18. Who had the longest individual reign as boxing heavyweight champion? Was it A, Alexander Holyfield, B, Vladimir Klitschko, C, Muhammad Ali, or D, Joe Louis? Folks, most of you know me as a lover and not a fighter, but in my younger years, I played soccer and I got into a few fights. There's one game I fought number 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 all at the same time. You could say the odds were against me. Question 19. Who holds the record for the most UFC title defenses by a female? She was also the first American woman to win an Olympic medal in judo and currently wrestles in the WWE. I once dated a judo champion. I don't know if she was a judo champion, but she flipped me for a guy named Ken. And it hurt. And I didn't see it coming, so. Question number 20. Which Canadian boxer with dual citizenship won the Olympic gold medal for super heavyweight boxing in 1988? Canadian with dual citizenship. I always think it's confusing with some people who have dual citizenship. Like, imagine having both Irish and Scottish citizenship. So part of you wants to get drunk, but the other part of you doesn't want to pay for it. That would be confusing. All right, time for round 3. Round 3 answers historical songs. Here we go. Question 11. What maritime disaster was the subject of a Gordon Lightfoot song? That was The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's question 12. What song featured the lyrics Birth Control, Ho Chi Minh, Richard Nixon, Back Again, Moonshot, Woodstock, Watergate, Punk Rock? That was We Didn't Start the Fire. We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. Question 13. What Russian mystic was immortalized in a song by the disco group Boney M? That was Rasputin. Remember that? Ra ra Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. Ba 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 something something. Question 14. What was the name of the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song about the Kent State shooting? That was Ohio. Ohio. Now, question 15. Don McLean refers to what musician's death when he sings about the day the music died in the song American Pie? That was Buddy Holly. We will also accept Big Bopper or Richie Valens. Fighters. Question 16. Which Irish MMA fighter was ranked the world's highest paid athlete by Forbes in 2021? That was Conor McGregor. Question 17. What former Toronto Maple Leaf player holds the record for the most fights in NHL history? That was Ty Domi. Ty Domi. Question 18. Who had the longest individual reign as boxing heavyweight champion? That was Joe Louis. He was heavyweight champion for 11 years and 8 months. Big deal. How do we know that he wasn't hiding? He got lucky once and then he took off. Nobody could find him for 11 years, 8 months. And I'm still champ. I'm still champion. Question 19. Who holds the record for the most UFC title defenses by a female? That was Ronda Rousey. Question 20. Which Canadian boxer won the Olympic gold medal for super heavyweight boxing in 1988? That was Lennox Lewis. No idea what he's doing. I think he's putting in furnaces. I think he's that guy. Is that the guy with the hat from the 1930s? Folks, you don't need a furnace. You got the show, the hottest show on television. We'll be right back right after this.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting Sober Driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
My daughter is 7 years old and has a frenemy. They have play dates that always end up in a fight or tears. His friend bosses her around and treats her poorly, but she still wants to be her friend. What's a parent to do?
I would let them acquiesce to a certain amount, and then, when they're at this age, you still need to be supervising their play dates. So I might step in, not to correct the bossy child, but it's my child that I'm concerned about. I would just expose her to other people, teach her to have a voice, and let her know that she's got options.
Monday nights, a winner with Optimus TV Bingo on Rogers TV. With a weekly prize board of $3,000, the money raised funds projects to help the youth in our community. You can pick up your cards at over 90 locations across London, and for only $2, you get 6 chances to win. Watch, play, and win every Monday night at 8 p.m. with Optimus TV Bingo on Rogers TV, or streamed live at rogerstv.com.
I'm Jennifer Slay, the host of What's Up London. Join me each week as I meet Londoners who are doing extraordinary things and helping to make the city a better place to live. Watch What's Up London Mondays only on Rogers TV.
Hi everyone, my name's Ranger M. I love to knowledge share, and that's just what I'm going to do with you. So come on, let's go learn with Ranger M.
Wow! Welcome back to the RTV Quiz Show, round 5, double point answers. Now, if you're just joining us now for this episode, I got one thing to say to you. You're dead to me! Huh? What? Why were you so busy? You waited this whole time, round 5. You slide in like nobody. Oh! Huh? Okay. The category is all my exes, all right? All these answers have the letter EX in them, in that order, EX, okay? Question 21. Crude oil, cars, and gold are some of Canada's top what? For those of you that are not aware, crude oil comes from Alberta, whereas rude oil comes from Quebec. Question 22. Before arriving in D.C., the Washington National Baseball team was known as what? What was the name of their team before the Washington Nationals? Question 23. What protects the bodies of insects like grasshoppers or ants and crustaceans like lobsters? What's that called? It starts with EX. speaking of grasshoppers, folks, we had a very, very interesting fun fact here. Apparently, immediately after mating, the female praying mantis will eat the head of the male praying mantis. I guess she's smart enough to figure out that life insurance pays more than child support. So that's good for them. That's pretty intelligent. 24. Nietzsche, Camus, and Kierkegaard are all associated with what branch of philosophical thought? Starts with an EX. Question 25. What is the legal term for evidence favorable to the defendant in a criminal trial that tends to exonerate the defendant of guilt? Where I come from, that's called witness tampering. I didn't see. I wasn't even there. All right, time for round 5. Round 5 answers. Here we go. Question 21. Crude oil, cars, and gold are some of Canada's top exports. I thought it was export A's. Cigarettes back in the day with a little Scottish guy in there. Folks, back in the day, when you could get cigarettes with a note from your neighbor. Please give 9-year-old Johnny a pack of exports. Signed, Johnny's neighbor. That was ID. Written on the back of a pack of Demoriers. Question 22. Before arriving in D.C., the Washington Nationals baseball team was known as what? As the Montreal Expos. Question 23. What protects the bodies of insects like grasshoppers and ants and crustaceans like lobsters? What's that called? It's called the exoskeletons. Yeah, think of it's just like, beetles have that hard shell that protects them from really nothing, actually. No one's ever stepped on a beetle or an ant and went, oh, and the ant runs away. And they just make that refreshing and reassuring popping sound, pop, crunch. Question 24, Nietzsche, Camus, and Kierkegaard are all associated with what branches of philosophical thought? That's existentialism. Existentialism is like the study of the meaning of life while realizing that you're broke because you majored in something that can't make you any money. Question 25, what is the legal term for evidence favorable to the defendant's criminal trial? That is exculpatory evidence. Exculpatory evidence. That's all the time we got for this RTV quiz show episode. All right, folks, in the meantime, stay calm, stay friendly, stay exculpatory, and stay nice.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Tyler Fines, host of Off the Puck Hockey on Rogers Channel 20. We interview some of the biggest names in hockey and sports. Check us out, Rogers Channel 20, Off the Puck Hockey. Let's go.
to keep the gateway to America's mainland open,
If I'm not certain this runway is safe, I am closing it down.
they've got to stay cool.
We have to be 100% certain